Hey, I'm David. This is going to be a reading on the drone attack that killed three U.S. soldiers and injured like 20 or so. This happened at a U.S. camp in Jordan along the Syria-Jordan border. A group called the Islamic Resistance in Iraq, which is an umbrella group for several Iran-backed militias in the country, said it attacked a number of places along the Jordan-Syrian border on Sunday, including a camp near the U.S. base in Jordan where the U.S. soldiers were killed. So, the first thought is, okay, well, were they targeting the Americans or was this a mistake? I'm going to just, it's like, well, maybe there's some doubt. Now, you know what? When you targeted Americans, you just don't make that mistake. Now, if it was a mistake, that was a big mistake to make. Just saying. So let's just assume that it was done on purpose. There's been a variety of responses. Biden and Kamala Harris have both put out statements that they'll hold those responsible accountable for it. Trump says this is just Biden's weakness, and other Republican senators are basically asking for all-out war. Nikki Haley wants to hit him with everything the U.S. has. There's a spectrum of opinions and posturings, and all those opinions and posturings of the senators and the presidential candidates doesn't mean squat. This is going to be the U.S. president's call and working with Congress on this. But what I want to read on is what's the energy around this attack and what will the Biden administration's response be? Because this is one of those things that could escalate. Basically, the senators want World War III. That's what they're asking for. If the U.S. gets involved in this, then all of a sudden the whole world's at war. Russia's at war. The U.S. is at war. China might just decide that now's the time to go after Taiwan because, the U.S. is busy and how are they going to fight two wars at the same time? The U.S. doctrine allows for it to do that, but you're also supplying Ukraine with weapons and technology, so that's kind of a drain on U.S. supplies as well. So this could all just be strategic and orchestrated events here. So come on down. Let's take a look. What's the energy around this attack on the U.S. base and the U.S. feeling in response to it? Okay, the attack on the base. Agreements. The Islamic militia that was, the Islamic Resistance that said this is that they want, basically the U.S. out of Iraq and they want freedom for Iraq, but they also are upset about the war between Israel and Gaza. Israel and Hamas, in Gaza, and the deaths of civilians in Gaza. So I think really what you have going on here, and sorry to throw conspiracy theories, but it's not an unreasonable one. Russia and Iran coming to an agreement and then using a proxy, in this case, militia groups, to carry out what they want, which is destabilization of the Middle East, which will help Russia and Iran out. Crossed by the Three of Cups. I think it's... So far, their plan's working out. You've got Hamas and Israel fighting a war, and that's taking attention off of Russia. You've got the Houthis attacking shipping, drawing the U.S. in, and moving, again, drawing the U.S. into the Middle East. And now you're attacking and killing U.S. troops, trying to draw the U.S. in to this conflict. Underneath it all is the Strength card. This is going to be the U.S.'s diplomatic resolve. Do we go in there with the Ace of Clubs and just smash heads? Or do we try and find diplomatic solutions and more strategic solutions for this? In the past, we've got the Five of Cups. Things are not going well for Russia with their war in Ukraine. Iran has been supporting Russia with drones and other technology, but it's not been enough because of U.S. and NATO supplies going to Ukraine. So something needed to change. And I think what they felt, Russia certainly has been very influential in certain GOP House and Senate members' resistance to funding Ukraine. Trying to cut the funding to Ukraine is one of the things that they've got. So one of their cups up here is their control over the GOP, and which is why there's been so much resistance in the House to funding Ukraine. The other cup here was Iran successfully, I think it was Iran that was funding Hamas. I could be wrong on that one, but Iran's local influence in the Middle East has been growing, and their backing of Russia has been helpful to Russia. China has verbally backed Russia, but they're not doing very much. China has other plans. They have certain islands and peninsulas that Russia took from them couple hundred years ago, and they want them back. So it's an uneasy alliance between Russia and China right now. U.S. is now at a decision point. They are now at a decision point. What do you do? Do you hit back? Do you not hit back? Do you hit back so hard that you draw folks into a war? We're right at the precipice again. I'm hoping, again, I think the U.S. is going to show strength here and not get sucked into a war. But expect that the right is going to scream bloody murder, and they're, of course, going to blame Biden for it because why he's the president. It's clearly his fault. The overarching energy is the Five of Coins. The being shut out, isolated, wintertime. The whole reason this is happening, the sanctions are hitting the Russian government hard. They can't keep up this war. And now, if you're following the news at all, come on up. If you're following the news at all, Ukraine has stepped up attacks on the petroleum refineries and petroleum areas. I'd have to read the article. I haven't read through it. But they're attacking Russian infrastructure on the petroleum industry. That is Russia's main source of income. So if U.S. sanctions are taking a bite out of Russian income, and Russia's managed to hide things or keep things going, but they can't get the parts that they need, and I think the government is probably getting fairly close to a financial collapse, which is why they're trying to get the U.S. Congress, especially in the House, to not pass funding for Ukraine. Because if Russia can prevent Ukraine from getting funding, Russia's just going to throw hundreds of thousands of bodies at Ukraine. Ukrainians will run out of bullets before Russia runs out of bodies. And then they just overwhelm them. All the attacks this summer was just Russia, and through the fall, was just Russia throwing bodies after bodies after bodies to assault Ukrainian well-defended positions. And it worked to a degree. Now, the human wave works if you've only got a dozen guys guarding a well-fortified position and your enemy attacks with 1,000 men, you could kill 500 or 600 of them, but at some point, that other 500 or 600 get through, so you're going to have to fall back, and you lose positions like that. So I think this play right now between Iran and Russia is because of the sanctions against Russia. Russia can't keep up the war effort. If they don't get something changed soon, especially U.S. funding for Ukraine suspended, they're going to lose this war. They've already lost the war, but they're going to run out of money and such. Ukraine really does have the upper hand and has been progressing well. Russia, at some point, their soldiers are not going to want to get thrown in the meat grinder. And there's going to be a rebellion in Russia against Putin. It's an election year in Russia, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a problem. That is a huge problem. That's what's weighing on Putin's mind right now. The lesson to be learned, Queen of Wands. It's funny. I got onto this Russia tangent. This is Ukraine. You've got, this is the Ukrainian grandmother with the sunflowers and her black cat, of course, telling the Russian troops to put sunflower seeds in their pockets. That way, when they die, something beautiful will grow out of the spot where they died in. This is about Ukraine and the successful defense Ukraine has put up, and the Ukrainian offensive, which has been pushing Russia back and costing Russia a lot of resources, plus the U.S. funding for it. The Ukrainian war has been an absolute disaster for Putin. And, as the comments have shown, you get Finland, Sweden, and I'm drawing a blank on the third country. Crap. Do I have to look it up? You've got 3 countries getting ready to join NATO. I guess it's Finland, Sweden, and then Ukraine are all going to join NATO. Finland's right on the border. It shares a really long border with Russia. And Sweden has been neutral for centuries, but they realize that if Ukraine goes down, what's going to stop Russia from going after them? And then Ukraine eventually will get in. This has been an unmitigated disaster for Putin. Outcome, Knight of Wands. I think the response is going to be measured. There will be a response. And the U.S. likes to respond with missiles. I think the U.S. will gain intelligence. They will go after the militia groups that did this through intelligence and probably missile strikes or something along those lines. There will be a response, but I think it's going to be a measured response. This is not like the Knight of Swords charging in there. This is going to be a more measured response. So I'm right now with the administration. I'm not worried that we're getting into World War III. It really looks like Biden is going to handle this in much in the same way that they handled the Houthis with the shipping issue. Now, mind you, they did a bunch of missile strikes with the Houthis, and the Houthis are a decentralized group, so it's hard to get them to stop. You probably caused some irreparable damage to their infrastructure and such, as far as missiles, missile launchers, drones, and stuff like that. But they're going to be spread throughout the country. They're not going to have nice convenient warehouses loaded with everything that they own. nothing quite as good as that. And the same thing is going to be with these militia groups. Okay. So just a 4-carder. What's next for the U.S. in this? We'll call it a wrap here. What's next for the U.S. with this attack here? Or maybe more to the point, will the Islamic Resistance group attack more U.S. bases? How about that? I think I know what the U.S. response is going to be. But will the Islamic group attack more U.S. bases? 6 of coins. They want the fighting to... I'm getting this is that they want the fighting to stop in Israel. But let's see. Oh, this is also going to just be funding. This is going to be funding from Iran. We'll see. Okay, let's see how this goes. Okay, got that. There's the celebration. I wasn't supposed to pull that one, but okay, we'll do it. What's next? There's a light. The U.S. is going to... U.S. intelligence will probably make the connection to who's funding these militia groups. And I think the militia groups that conducted this attack, they're going to get more funding from Iran. So, Iran's the big money cat here, and they're the ones supplying these groups with the funding that they need. This was a celebrated attack. This is exactly what Iran wanted. They got it. They snuck in. They snuck in, killed some U.S. troops, and snuck out. There's no casualties on their end, and it's kind of the U.S. might be the King of Swords here. You got one over on the King of Swords. the King of Swords is going to respond, and they know they're going to respond, but there's a moral victory for Iran and the militia groups here. But also, underneath all this going on with this is the backroom negotiations going on. This is going to spur on more diplomacy behind the scenes, probably between the U.S., Iran, Russia, Israel, and Hamas and the Palestinian government. I think there's going to be more diplomacy. This is going to be one of those things that speeds up the State Department in diplomacy. Okay, I thought I was going to stop it on that. But here's the other thing. I think what that is, it's to put pressure on the United States to get Israel to stop. That was my gut feeling when I saw that card come out. And so I'm just going to ask that flat out here. So you can get a bonus question. Because now I'm on a train of thought, and it's left the station, and hopefully I'm on board with it. Okay, will this cause the U.S. to put pressure on Netanyahu to stop the assaults in Palestine, in Gaza? Will this act cause the U.S. to put more pressure on Netanyahu to stop the assaults in Gaza? 10 of coins. Possibly. This to me is, again, 10 of coins is about health or wealth. It's about generational health and wealth, DNA. You can make the argument that this could represent Israel or could represent the Middle East. This has been the birthplace of several major religions, and they all consider that area around the Middle East to be it's holy ground for all of them, or the Holy Land for all of them. Will this cause the U.S. to negotiate with Israel? Probably, and probably it's going to the U.S. aid package. The U.S. aid package, which is in negotiation with Congress right now, there might be some extra contingencies made about Israel receiving that aid package. Maybe it's tied to ceasing hostilities if you want to receive that aid package. Let's see. There's the temperance. Okay. Yeah. This is the aid, and the aid coming and ongoing aid. And it's kind of looking at the passions of it, that understanding and appreciating the loss that Israel has suffered, but it's also the loss of civilian life. And there's been more and more pushback from the Biden administration and other diplomats about the civilian loss being unacceptable. They want to slow down the assault. It may not be pause it, but it's definitely slow it down. Be more precise. Stop being indiscriminate with the killing. We understand you're upset. That doesn't give you a right for mass murder. I think the campaign that Israel is going to do is going to be ongoing, but it's going to slow it down. They want it to slow it down. Doesn't mean they have to stop, but be more discriminate with it going forward. So, okay. What's the impact? I think there's going to be pressure put on Israel to slow down their offensive campaign in Gaza. And what just appears, at least with the news sources I go to, is that just indiscriminate killing of civilians. It's just we are in a wild time right now, and I don't like reading on the Israel Hamas situation. It's nicer to read when things are a bit more black and white, but there's just so much bad behavior on all sides with this. And if you were to poll, and I'm not the first person to say this, if you were to ask the folks in Israel, the folks in Palestine what they want peace. They want to be able to go about their lives and do the things that they want to do. They want the freedom to move about. They want to have their families. They want to have enough to get, enough to enjoy life with, enough to eat, enough to drink. have their kids have a future. Real wild, radical stuff here, huh? And yet there's this feeling of fear. Right-wing governments, and Israel certainly has a very far right-wing government, and the U.S. is threatening to go down that path. I mean, to the point where they want to suspend their Supreme Court. They work on fear. You've got to put an enemy out there, and that's what Netanyahu and company do. And that fear leads to resource guarding and resource scarcity issues, and that's what leads to these massive conflicts. And I'm sure Palestine feels the same way about Israel, because Israel's bigger and has more military capacity. So what does Palestine can't really fight Israel straight up. So, well, just get along. I'm just going to end it here and start preaching. And we don't need to go there. Anyways, thank you for watching this video and supporting my channel. I appreciate it. Thank you for your likes and your shares and your kind words and everything you do to help feed the YouTube algorithm so that the video makes it out to a wider audience. And I've had a lot of new subscribers in the past week, maybe on the topics I've read on, maybe on that live that I did the other day on the Cool Crohn's channel. But to all the new viewers and subscribers, welcome to the channel. Glad you found us. I hope you found this reading insightful, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.